Before we get started with today's conversation, I want you to welcome in our special guest for October. We, of course, have Danny DeVito with a brand new hat. And we also have Mr. Michael Holland, who is going to remain in that mask for the rest of the month. But anyway, let's talk about the most divisive PTB that we've seen thus far on the Dead by Daylight servers. Literally, it seems like since this came out a week ago, everybody has a different opinion on whether the finishing Mori and the Unbreakable base kit should come into the game full time. And seeing as this PTB isn't actually coming to live servers in the next update, I think it's actually more important to talk about and give feedback on this. Because for the first time ever, I think, Dead by Daylight and Behavior are actually using the PTB to test a concept and then get our feedback on it before they actually roll it out, which I think is really cool. And I really want to implore all of you to actually give feedback on what you think about this whole system, about the changes, and whether you think it should come to the servers. So this PTB featured a bunch of different changes, but there were three main things that people were focusing on. The first one was the finishing Mori, which basically meant that if you down everybody in a match, the game ends. And instead of having Mori offerings and the ability to Mori in things like Devour Hope and Rancor, you actually now just have one potential Mori at the end of the match to kind of reward the killer for the 4K. The second thing was Unbreakable base kit, which kind of speaks for itself. You can now pick yourself up in at least 45 seconds as per without any perks as Survivor. And then the perks that used to pick you up like Unbreakable and No Mither and whatnot, now just increase your recovery speed, allowing you to pick yourself up in as little as, I think somebody worked out as like 12 seconds, which is pretty crazy. And then the third thing which people are talking about, which I don't think anybody actually expected, I think it kind of came as a blindside surprise to literally the entire player base, was a Flashlight Nerf. Now, I'm going to talk about this before I talk about anything else. A lot of people are very mad about the Flashlight Nerf. Basically, what they've changed is that you can no longer spam the click, and when you click into it, it's like a slower kind of thing. And basically takes you a little bit longer to actually turn on the flashlight as the survivor. On the face of it, a lot of people have been like, I don't understand this nerf. I don't understand why they've bothered to change flashlights. They were fine as it is. What the hell? Everybody started freaking out. But let's make sure that we're aware of why they did this. They've changed flashlights to improve accessibility. Okay, there was a lot of problems with people spamming the flashlight clicks for people with epilepsy. It was causing a lot of problem with like spamming the light feature. As you can probably imagine, if you're playing as killer and you're getting lights flashed at you, if you have epilepsy, that's probably not going to be a good outcome for you. So they've changed it to try and make the game more accessible, which I'm all for. I think it's awesome. And more props to you, Behavior. Of course, it is a bit weird, I think, to get into the new flashlight change. And, you know, like a lot of people have said that there could be different things that they could do. And maybe there are. But for now, I'm actually A-okay with the flashlight change. I don't mind it. What takes precedence? Somebody's genuine health, physical health, you know, a person with epilepsy, their physical health, or your ability to click, 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 click at a killer. If you genuinely think the latter is more important, you need to reevaluate your choices. In all honesty, that's my final word on that topic. So let's move on to the two other features, and let's talk about whether or not I like them. Let's start with the killer perspective. Honestly, it doesn't change my gameplay as a killer. I didn't really care about it when it came out. I don't think that I'm going to try harder to get 4Ks in order to obtain this Mori, you know. I'm not somebody who really cares about winning in games as killer or as survivor, really. I just kind of play for fun. But that was my biggest gripe with this Mori change at the same time, is that I think it does remove a lot of fun from the killer side. And I've made a video about this, which was talking about it when they announced the changes in the patch notes. I still kind of maintain that. I think it is a shame that the potential for a Mori has been basically cut down by like 75%. I think that's really crap. And now the only thing that killers have is to go for the 4K, which may seem obvious. Like, yeah, you just go for the win. That's, you know, that's kind of how the game works. But it kind of sucks that literally the only thing that killers have to work for now is a 4K, and that's it. That, in my opinion, is going to cause a lot of problems for the survivors, which we'll talk about in a second. But I did watch a lot of killer gameplay, and it was kind of crazy to see people like Spooky Loops able to end the game in like 2 minutes and 41 seconds just by snowballing the downs. I think that was kind of crazy. But yeah, overall, I don't honestly think it's going to change my way of playing much. It's not going to change my playstyle. It'll probably make my games a little less fun, but, you know, minor, I guess. From the survivor perspective, though, I actually think this update is kind of terrible. I said in my previous video that this update promotes slugging, and I'm going to go into that like a little bit more in a second. But first of all, I want to talk about how the matches that I played and the matches that I watched seem to be split into two stages. right? With this new update, you had two essential halves of the match. The first half was the killer tunneling and camping out two survivors. As hard as they could, they would just tunnel off the hook, tunnel, and they would get these two survivors out as quickly as possible to then move on to the next stage, which was the slug the third person and then down the fourth person as quickly as possible to activate the finishing Mori. And I actually saw this firsthand in one of my gameplays where I went up against a Wesker and he was literally downing the Ada, then downing me, then downing the Ada. And he couldn't down the other person quick enough, so the third person would just pick themselves up with the unbreakable base kit. And then it was just going back and forth. And literally that game only ended because I died from my bleed out timer. And that's where the whole promoting slugging things comes into it. Now, I'm going to kind of expand on that point. A lot of people in the comments of my previous video was like, how does it promote slugging? Slugging's been nerfed. Unbreakable base kit, it's literally by definition been nerfed. And I would absolutely agree with you. Slugging has been nerfed. But my point was not whether or not slugging had been buffed or nerfed. My point was that it's being promoted as a playstyle for killers. Basically, the way that Moris used to work is that they would reward hooks. Okay, if you think about the offering, you would have to get 2 hooks on a single survivor before you were able to Mori them. If you think about the Devour Hope, you would have to get 5 stacks, which was essentially 5 hooks. The only one that didn't really was Rancor. That was kind of an exception to the rule, but in general, Moris rewarded hooks. Now, with this finishing Mori update, they reward downs, right? So there's no reason at the moment with this finishing Mori in to hook survivors. There's literally not. Like, you can hook one survivor and then down the other 3, as we've seen by many people who are playing like Oni and Nurse and all that kind of stuff, who can snowball that potential. But you don't actually need to hook people. And that's why it's a problem for me. That's why it promotes slugging. Yeah, slugging may have been nerfed and, you know, Unbreakable's base kit now, but all that does is extend the game timer. It doesn't actually remove the possibility of slugging or remove the benefit of slugging. It just makes it a little bit more difficult to do. But people are still going to do it because that's how they get their Moris now. They down people. And that is one of the biggest flaws of this new finishing Mori update, is that it's going to promote this playstyle in killers that a lot of survivors are already complaining about. Tunneling, camping, slugging. And this update is going to push more killers to play in that style. So what can we do to improve it? What can we do to make this better? Because in my opinion, as it stands right now, this update should not come in to live servers. So what can we do to improve it? Well, in my opinion, there are 2 potential solutions, okay? The first one is that you make the finishing Mori and the last man standing thing that they've introduced only activate in a 1v1 scenario. Okay, so when 3 people are dead and you've got the last survivor standing, that's when that will activate. So you still have to hook and kill 3 other survivors for that to activate. And it kind of creates this like battle between the last survivor and the killer in a much more of a 1v1 scenario, which might be quite cool. And this is something I've seen a lot of other people say on Twitter and YouTube comments as well. And to be fair, I kind of agree with it. However, there is one major problem with that I've seen, and that is, it kind of shits on the fun aspect in that it makes it even harder to acquire a Mori. Like, you're going to limit it even further, and that kind of sucks. And, you know, again, that kind of plays into this whole like killer not having fun in the game thanks to this update thing that I was talking about earlier. But it's an improvement that would boost the overall game's playability if this update came in my opinion. The second improvement is quite a simple one, and that's just to revert it, scrap it, don't bring it in, which honestly I think is the better thing to do. I don't think Moris needed to be changed. I don't think that it's a good change that they brought in. I honestly think that's the best thing we can do. I don't think this should come into live servers. I don't think that this update fixes anything. I don't think it improves anything. Yeah, it changes the game. Maybe it makes the game feel more fresh, but is it necessarily for the best? No, in my opinion, I don't think it is. So I don't see this being a good addition to the game. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to obviously start these discussions. If you have differing opinions to me, that's absolutely fine. Let me know in the comments. If you have the same opinion as me and you think I've missed a point, let me know in the comments as well. And remember to be respectful to each other in this discussion. But these are my thoughts, and I hope you've enjoyed them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now. So let me break it all down for you. I ain't never giving up. I ain't never giving up. I'm taking that crown from you.